Wonderful. Well, it is great to have everyone today. I know we've got some here in the on-campus setting. We also have some joining us online, and welcome to all. I'm really excited. I am kind of sad, I have to say, because we're nearing the end of this great volume in the journal series of the Joseph Smith Papers. This is the second 1838 journal, and I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it, but it's very, very brief. Very brief. It was just 3 tall, skinny, handwritten pages in a memoranda that was created that we'll talk about today, but has some really powerful lessons in it, and I'm excited to reason and relate about those lessons with you. We're going to take a look at the 3rd of September through the 6th of October in 1838 as we study the Joseph Smith Papers today, and I'm really excited. Thank you once again for coming. And Hiram, would you please offer our opening prayer so that we can start our lesson?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Our dear, kind, gracious Heavenly Father, we thank Thee so very much that we could be here today, and we thank Thee for this wonderful class, and we thank Thee for Mr. Gentile for spending his time and his effort into putting this class together. And we ask Thee bless it to fill Thy Spirit today, and we say this in Jesus Christ.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Hiram. All right. Well, I love these quotes here from the months that will come just after the month, the 4 weeks that we'll look at today. This is Joseph Smith the man. We have an opportunity to reason, once again, this question that we look at every week from different quotes that are not in the journals that we are studying. And so what do these quotes teach you about Joseph Smith the man? Of course, that's the reasoning question. Welcome. It's good to see you. And here's the first one. Afterwards, Joseph said that he would rather go to state's prison for 20 years or would rather die himself than have the people exterminated. And this is John Quarles, who is writing in A Brief History of the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's the book that he wrote about the early history of the church in this dispensation. He wrote this about Joseph Smith's decision to submit to arrest rather than continue fighting and eluding arrest while the saints struggled with the mob in Missouri. And so we have this interesting decision here that we'll see from 1838. And then after Joseph Smith was arrested, we see that as he was writing a letter to his beloved wife Emma on the 4th of November, still in 1838, he said, "Those little children are subjects," and he's writing about his own children to Emma, "those little children are subjects of my meditation continually. Tell them that Father is yet alive. God grant that he may see them again. O Emma, for God's sake, do not forsake me, nor the truth, but remember me. If I do not meet you again in this life, may God grant that we may meet in heaven. I cannot express my feelings. My heart is full. Farewell, O my kind and affectionate Emma. I am yours forever, your husband and true friend." What would you reason about Joseph Smith the man from these two very poignant quotes from 1838?
Well, it just shows that Joseph Smith really cared about everyone, including his own family.
Please, Mrs. Cowley.
He has a love like the Savior for the people and also for his family that are very intense and very sacred, I think. And obviously he's willing to give up everything for them.
Yes.
Give up his life and all of the, which might even be harder, all of the persecution that he had to face as well. The trials that he had to endure.
I love that answer, and we'll talk about this certainly in class today as we get deeper into the history, but these quotes come hot on the heels of the Hans Mill massacre. So when Joseph was talking about potentially giving up his life, that was a reality that could have very, very easily come to pass for him.
It's more likely than not, probably.
Yes. Yes, in fact, we know there will be divine intervention as Alexander Doniphan is moved upon to help the saints in this time. And truly, Joseph was at this crossroads where he was willing to submit himself not just to arrest, but to death to protect the saints that he loved. And so what a Christ-like way to live. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mr. Anderson, please.
Well, just a comment that you made, that it really had to be very present to him because there had been so many people that he knew well. And it had to be probably a reality crossing his mind that maybe if he did give himself up, that it would stop the brutalities, potentially.
Yes.
And yet, to know also that perhaps there was more work he would like to do or had from heaven yet to do, would be such a dilemma. I just think of him translating the Book of Mormon and knowing of certain other stories in the Book of Mormon where there was such bloodshed. It was probably very real in his mind.
Yes. Oh,
very, very real.
Thank you so much for that. And this really is just so important to remember that, for us, we know, oh, well, he still has a few good years left. I mean, we have that hindsight. But for Joseph, they had just been murdering young children, 10-year-old boys and others at Hans Mill. And so Joseph certainly would be subject to that at the whims, of those who were his captors, if it were not for divine intervention, and certainly the hand of the Lord, right, letting him live, because his mission was not yet finished. But certainly this was very real to him, and he had been studying as he's translating the Bible, as he had translated the Book of Mormon. He'd seen so many who were in the situation where they did die. And as they chose to make that ultimate sacrifice, it did not meet a happy end where there was deliverance in this life. Certainly there was deliverance in the next life for those who died in a just cause. But for Joseph, he did not know the end from the beginning at this point. So thank you for that. I love that comment. Any other wonderful insights? And these are just so precious. I love learning about Joseph here. Anything else that you'd reason as principles that we might do well to live by? Please.
Well, just, it puts, there's a very interesting comparison here when sometimes we're offered or asked to make small sacrifices for our fellow man.
Yes.
I'm thinking about a simple fast offering.
Right.
Maybe some of us give a fast offering that may be generous and maybe even painfully generous sometimes. And maybe sometimes even at that level it pales in comparison to this kind of sacrifice, right? And there could be some who don't choose to give.
Right.
And yet this kind of generosity and willingness to go to prison for 20 years. I mean, we're not talking $5 or $10 or $50, right? We're talking 20 years of your life to save others, or your whole life.
Yes.
The magnitude is really remarkable.
I love that. And this would be a pattern in Joseph's life. There are many historians, as they've looked at the accounts of Carthage and how Joseph was martyred, said, Joseph knew that if he could give himself up, he would have a chance at saving his friends who were with him in that room, in that jail. And we see this is something that again and again he would choose. And just once again, back to this wonderful comment here by Sister Cowley. Mrs. Cowley, we see this is what the Savior did, giving himself up for his friends, laying down his life, being willing to do that. And yet if we get a phone call at 9 o'clock at night, hey, can you come over? Oh, I can't believe someone would take me away from the Green Bay Packers. I mean, you know what I mean? And then you step back and you say, wait a minute. The Packers or what Joseph went through? Okay, I shouldn't be complaining. Thank you. Thank you so much for that great insight. Anything else that we would reason? Thank you for sharing what you have. Once again, I always try to share things that aren't in the journals that we're looking at for the day, but yet relate to the subject. And I think they really help us to flesh out this picture of Joseph Smith the man, Joseph Smith the prophet, this wonderfully exemplary spirit whom we would do well to emulate. Once again, just kind of getting back to this chronology so you can sort of see where we are, the lay of the land, the forest from the trees, that sort of idea. We're here in 1838. This Missouri War, and then you'll see its effects, especially on Joseph, would take us into early 1839. Last class we talked about this August 6th event, this Election Day brawl at Gallatin. We'll see that in early October, sort of over a period of time, there will be this siege at DeWitt. that will see the saints eventually evacuate. They'll have to lead away. October 25th, the Battle of Crooked River, which certainly is infamously known because we see the death of not only the apostle, Elder David W. Patton, but also Patrick O'Banion. And then things will really, just a couple days later, become incredibly unbearable for the saints. As on October 27th, we'll see this extermination order, this idea that we'll read more about in just a moment. Welcome, so good to have you. Of driving the saints from the state, but if that's not possible, of extermination. And just imagine, once again, getting to that point and what that would be like, because that was their reality. We have seen sort of a flowering of the church. We've seen sort of what's been known as the golden era of public relations under President Hinckley, and the church gaining popularity as people of notoriety in the world. We love Steve Young, we love so and so. And in many ways, the church has been in the limelight for good. Now we can also say that certainly there have been occasions where we've been in the limelight and we haven't been popular and that sort of thing. But really, just imagine an extermination order. This is not just, people might call us names if we stand up for, marriage between a man and a woman. This is far beyond what we have ever endured. I'm just guessing. But with that said, that extermination order would have very, very serious effects, because notice only 3 days later, the climate that was created by that order by Governor Boggs would lead to Haun's Mill, and where we would see extermination. Right now, also there's a very important lesson that we'll see in terms of not following the prophet's counsel that Joseph himself would talk about in hindsight about this event. But we would see at least 17 saints were killed there, right? About 15, by some accounts 13, others 14, others 15, but about 15 were wounded. And then after that, that's when really the war part of it is going to wind down very quickly. We'll still see violent events going on, but most of the time we'll see Joseph and other leaders will be under arrest now, right, following Haun's Mill all the way through then their escape in April of 1839. And we'll just see that we'll go from Alexander Doniphan, helping the saints out, helping Joseph out, and then also we'll see that at Richmond we'll have the very famous account that we have from Parley P. Pratt, the silencing fiends of the infernal pit. Finally, Liberty Jail, he'll be there in December, and then from December through April. We know of section 121 and 122 and 123 that were written as one letter that we divided into three, that sort of thing, to the saints. Anyway, but just imagine all of this is going on, and here we are, and it's so interesting. I don't know if you had a chance to read this journal. It's so interesting. We have all of this, about to break open upon the saints, and it's Joseph wasn't home today. Joseph ate breakfast today. Joseph rode away today. Joseph ate dinner. And that's the whole journal. That's basically it, right? Anyway, and so just how interesting it is. And imagine if our lives were judged by just our journals. How many holes would there be? Big things that may be missing. But you'll see that there may have been a different purpose for this journal, and we'll talk about that. But with that said, a little bit of an introduction. By early September of 1838, James Mulholland, by the way, anyone related to James Mulholland? Some, maybe. Anyway, he had begun clerking for Joseph Smith and then living as a boarder at his home, which is one of the reasons why he can say, Joseph came back at this time in the morning. Joseph left at this time in the afternoon. You're like, is he following him around? I mean, what is he doing? Well, no, he was a boarder at his house. It wasn't a stalker or anything else. I mean, he was asked to do this. Anyway, Mulholland's journal entries, which constitute the second 1838 Journal of Joseph Smith, provide a skeletal account of events in the prophet's life from the 3rd of September through the 6th of October in 1838. And we'll see. Did anybody get a chance to look at the picture of the source? It was kind of fun. About, sort of like one of these, like this and like this, tall and skinny, almost like a pamphlet size thing, sewn together, hand sewn. Anyway, they fill 3 tall, skinny pages of a hand-stitched notebook, barely hint at the challenges that awaited the saints during the Missouri War's bloody October that we just looked at in the chronology. Instead, they provide terse descriptions of the prophet at home, which Mulholland may have been requested to record, as you may have read, to document Joseph's daily whereabouts for a court of law. We don't know, but it may have been, we need to know where Joseph has been minute by minute, not minute by minute, but hour by hour in the day, right, for certain reasons that perhaps the judge has said this might help you, right? And we don't know, but the Joseph Smith papers, right, that's one of the conclusions that the historians have come to, if you read at least the paper copy, and you could probably find that online as well. but I did read that in the paper copy. So anyway, just a little bit of an introduction that I put together for you. But with that said, though, let's take a look at what's coming. Because remember, Joseph's life is not just a happy time with his family where he's only eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner at home. There's so much more going on. And when you saw the chronology, and let's just sort of dive into just a couple little spotlights. Here's the extermination order. Northern Missouri was in an uproar. Remember, this is only 3 weeks later, only 3 weeks. And we don't have any journal that describes this. We don't have any journal, because the next one we'll see will pick up in 1839, right? And so once again, we're missing these chunks of life. And that perhaps to us might be a call to, oh, what will my great-grandchildren miss if I haven't written for, a period of time? Right? And so anyway, but with that said, 3 weeks later, just so we know what's coming down the road. Northern Missouri was in an uproar the last week of October as mobs were heard of in every direction. The mobs burned houses and crops, rustled cattle, detained prisoners, and threatened the saints with death. General Atchison again urged Governor Boggs to come to the area, but instead, on the 27th of October, he ordered his militia to war, relying solely upon the false reports of a Mormon insurrection. Boggs asserted that the saints had defied the laws and initiated hostilities. Therefore, he wrote, the Mormons must be treated as enemies and must be exterminated or driven from the state if necessary for the public good. Their outrages are beyond all description, close quote. By this time, public opinion was so strong against the saints that even those who knew the truth would not side openly with them. Governor Boggs' extermination order was an outgrowth and expression of the popular will. General Atchison was in charge of the state troops, but was dismissed by the governor prior to the surrender of Far West. The command was given to General John B. Clark. General Clark did not arrive at Far West until a few days after the surrender. General Samuel D. Lucas, a longtime anti-Mormon from Jackson County, was left in temporary command of the militia that was so rapidly gathering from all sides to encircle Far West. And remember, Far West, this is the headquarters of the church now, right? Moves from Kirtland. Joseph flees, right? There's an assassination attempt. He leaves with Sidney. They eventually get separated, and finally they come back to Far West, and that's where the church is going to headquarter for a time. By October 31st, over 2,000 men surrounded Far West. Most of them were determined to fulfill the governor's order. So this is a serious, serious time for the saints. And just imagine living, imagine if, the state, the militia, right, the National Guard is circling Eagle Mountain. We've all, fled to the stake centers. We're using food storage to live. I mean, just what a crazy thing, right? Anyway, with that said, right, shortly after, once again, 3 days later, from the 27th to the 30th, we have Haun's Mill. It was at Haun's Mill that violence again erupted. This small settlement 12 miles east of Far West was founded by Jacob Hahn, a convert from Green Bay, Wisconsin. He had moved to Shoal Creek in 1835, hoping to avoid the persecutions his fellow saints were experiencing elsewhere in Missouri. Haun's Mill consisted of a mill, a blacksmith shop, a few houses, and a population of about 20 to 30 families at the mill itself, and 100 families in the greater neighborhood. On the 30th of October, 9 wagons with immigrants from Kirtland had arrived at the site. They had decided to rest a few days before traveling to Far West. Immediately after the Battle of Crooked River, the prophet Joseph Smith advised all saints in outlying areas to move to Far West or Adam-ondi-Ahman. Unwilling to abandon his property, Jacob Hahn disregarded the prophet's counsel and instructed the small community to remain. This unwise decision proved fatal. And so notice, we often talk about those terrible mobbers who committed this atrocity, and they did, and it was horrible. But also, let us never forget, right, the disobedience to prophetic counsel that also led to this event. Hahn's group planned to use the blacksmith shop as a fort in the event of an enemy attack. Guards were posted to protect the mill and the settlement. At about 4 p.m., the mob approached Hahn's Mill. The women and children fled into the woods, while the men sought protection in the blacksmith shop. David Evans, the military leader of the Saints, swung his hat and cried for peace. The sound of 100 rifles answered him, most of them aimed at the blacksmith shop. The mobbers shot mercilessly at anyone in sight, including women, elderly men, and children. Amanda Smith seized her 2 little girls and ran with Mary Steadwell across the mill pond on a walkway. Amanda recalled, "Yet though we were women with tender children in flight for our lives, the demons poured volley after volley to kill us." Although a few men along with women and children, escaped across the river into the hills. At least 17 people were killed and about 13 were wounded. Jacob Hahn was among the wounded, but he recovered. Years later, the prophet remarked, "At Hahn's mill, the brethren went contrary to my counsel. If they had not, their lives would have been spared." The devastated survivors left Missouri during the winter, and following spring, along with other church members, the mob continued to persecute some of the widows before they left, but the Lord helped them. Amanda Smith remembered the reassurance she received from the Lord as she crept into a cornfield to pray aloud. "It was as the temple of the Lord to me at that moment. I prayed aloud and most fervently. When I emerged from the corn, a voice spoke to me. It was a voice as plain as I ever heard one. It was no silent, strong impression of the Spirit, but a voice, repeating a verse of the saints' hymn, 'That soul who on Jesus hath leaned for repose. I will not, I cannot desert to his foes. That soul, though all hell should endeavor to shake, I'll never, no never, no never forsake.'" And she said, "From that moment I had no more fear. I felt that nothing could hurt me." So certainly there were some amazing experiences, and many others too that I'm sure you know about, the gristle and the hip and all of that. But certainly this was a trying time for the saints, and we need to know that this is what was coming, like I said, about 3 weeks down the road. So then, with that background in mind, please think about Joseph at home, because we have journal entries that were about this long. And all of them were the same. And so with that said, let's just really put on our reasoning caps here, because I think that there's much that we can learn from what we do have, even though certainly we've talked about a number of important things that we don't have in this 1838 journal. Joseph simply said, or James Mulholland, writing for Joseph, simply said, on the 3rd of September 1838, that Joseph was at home all or greater part of day. What would you reason about the prophet?
Well, he either didn't know what had happened or he didn't want to talk about it.
As I read these journals, it really made me appreciate the other journals that were so filled with information. But I thought, you know, at least this little tiny snippet into his life is better than no snippet at all.
Yes.
And it gave him that human factor of, oh yeah, he ate breakfast with his family.
Yes.
You know, and we know that. I thought at least hearing about just his normal in and out was better than not hearing anything at all.
Yes. I love
and I think that applies to, like you say, our children and grandchildren.
Yes.
Better to your mundane routine.
If you love to eat watermelon, wouldn't that be a fun thing for somebody to pick up on in 40 years?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Grandma loved watermelon. I mean, who knew? I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know, do you love watermelon?
No, like they're saying, oh, I love watermelon.
Right, yeah, I can relate. Thank you for that. Thank you. Please, Mr. Andrews.
Well, the fact that he was home all day, and for several instances that
Yes.
is revealing of his character, right? Because what we do with our time, or our energy, or our money, shows a lot about what we care about, right? And I think we don't know what was going on at home, right? He could have been very thoughtful on behalf of his kids, but you know, the fact that it was at home, I think, is for me a good reminder. There's much time I should be spending at home.
Yes.
And if I don't know where to go, I should probably go home.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
I love
if I don't, you know, if I can't do something at home and still have it count, maybe I could do it at home instead of out. You know what I mean? So that to me is the message that speaks here.
Thank you.
Be home, spend it home.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, because here we are through this lens of the Missouri War, thinking, how could he be at home at a time like this, you know? But then what about if you were Emma? What about one of his children? Boy, I would have loved to have had Dad at home all or the greater part of the day, you know, for so many reasons, and I think it really is instructive. So with that said, as we think about the way we use our time, now clearly, right, there are times where we need to be away from home. You know, I would love to be at home all day, but at the same time, I think eventually I will sure take some responsibility. You know, that I do need that. And today, you know, without the family farm, you know, that means I go away and I work and then I come back. You know, but with that said, did it say that Joseph was at the bowling league? You know, was he out back, you know, playing baseball, you know, with his buds? You know, was he canoeing? You know, I love this. He was at home. And I think as we think about Joseph at home, right, this is very important as we think about time and the way we use it, getting back to this great comment here. Let's try to relate this for a moment. This is Elder Ballard, because certainly I think there may be many temptations in our lives to spend time away from home when perhaps we shouldn't be spending time away from home. And here's one from Elder Ballard. Occasionally we find some who become so energetic in their church service that their lives become unbalanced. Now certainly, this is the prophet of God. This may have been easy for him. Perhaps a temptation. Oh, I am the prophet of the restoration. I need to throw myself, you know, every moment of the day into church work. He could have sat, you know, at a desk and done nothing but church work. But certainly we see here, as a result of their focusing too much time and energy on their church service, eternal family relationships can deteriorate. Employment performance can suffer. This is not healthy, spiritually or otherwise. While there may be times when our church callings require more intense effort and unusual focus, we need to strive to keep things in proper balance. We should never allow our service to replace the attention needed by other important priorities in our lives. Still, there are those who experience some feelings of guilt as a consequence of their service in the church. These feelings can come when our time and attention are being torn between competing demands and priorities. As mortals, we simply cannot do everything at once. Therefore, we must do all things in wisdom and order. Often, that will mean temporarily postponing attention to one priority in order to take care of another. Sometimes family demands will require your full attention. Maybe home all day meant something that we have no idea about, and Joseph and Emma were taking care of something. We don't know. Maybe not, but maybe, right? Other times, professional responsibilities will come first. There will be times where, as much as I'd love to play soccer in the yard with Joshie, that's not what needs to come first at that time. Doesn't mean I never play soccer with him, right? And then there will be times when church callings will come first. So as you take a look at this quote, how can we reason this very, very short entry about being at home to our lives in a way that will motivate us to apply these true principles that we see here from Elder Ballard? What do you see? What would you reason that we can relate to ourselves in our time at home? Please.
This is a constant struggle for me.
Yeah.
I've served as a Relief Society president for 4.5 years, and this is an issue.
Sure.
And I tell every sister we ever call into any calling, you might have to sacrifice hobbies, interests, but you will never have to sacrifice your family. And hopefully we can be good at prioritizing and not have conflicts, but if conflicts arise between this calling and your family comes first. And I always want to stress that.
Yeah.
Because, these earthly callings will come and go. But our eternal callings do not come and go.
Definitely.
And so, and I love the way he so clearly states this.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful comment about just this need, this reminder for balance. Thank you.
And I've found, I mean, I could literally serve 24 hours a day. I mean, and
There are enough women in the ward and families
Oh.
in the ward who struggle. Yes, you could never be home.
right, right.
Sure.
And so it's just, sometimes you just have to say,
Mhm.
yeah, my 14-year-old daughter is going to be home alone. I'd rather be with her.
Mhm.
And just, you know,
Thank you.
but,
Thank you so much for that
yeah.
perspective.
But it is like walking a tightrope,
Mhm.
constant walking.
Yes.
I mean, as anyone knows who
Mhm.
has served in any capacity, it is.
Definitely. Once again, coming back to this idea of wisdom and order, right? We cannot do everything at once. It's impossible. We have to come back to these principles of wisdom and order. What would the Lord have me do? What's most important right now? What's good? What's better? What's best? Right. Thank you. Please, Mr. Anderson. Was that a hand from before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was. Sorry.
So the relate for me, the therefore what, is the idea that I must create balance, right? People cannot create balance for you.
Mhm.
I don't think, maybe something someone says, your bishop says, or your stake president says can help you find balance, but nonetheless, you still have to make the balance yourself.
Exactly.
This is a call to action
Mhm.
to the members of the church from Elder Ballard to make that balance, right? To be intentional and deliberate about it. Certainly to follow the promptings of the Spirit, because there will be times where certain parts of your life will require more attention than others. But you've got to be deliberate about that, because if you just go at the whims of the demands as they come, then you won't find that balance. You'll throw yourself into something headlong and maybe neglect other important things. So.
Great. Oh, thank you so much for that. In fact, that reminds me. So I was counseling with my wife. We're just talking together. How can we try to find this balance for our family? Because at this point, I've been in our ward's bishopric now. It'll be 4 years in March. So it's been a while, and we're trying to figure out, okay, this balance. And obviously, we have different demands with our family. The children are growing; they need different things. And so I said, okay, we've got some new meeting schedules coming, obviously, for the new year. We're switching church times, and obviously a lot of dominoes fall with that. And so, we sat down together, and I was able to put together this grid of, day by day, hour by hour, here's how I really want to spend my time. Because if I can see it, and this is just, maybe this doesn't work for anybody else, but for me, if I can see how all the pieces would fit together and balance and feel good about that, then I can say, okay, great, that's the ideal. I will continue to come back to that. Tuesday. Okay, great. Now, I'm going from here to here to here, and if I can do all those things, I'll feel good about the balance that I have. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. And obviously, of course, the Spirit will, tell me in the moment if that needs to be adjusted. But we put together this grand plan, and like I said, I've got the Sunday schedule hour by hour, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all the different things. And I counseled with her, and I said, okay, hey, as we look at this, am I missing anything? How do we feel about the time I'm getting with Mia? What about with Hope? What about with Josh? What about with Acadia? What about with you? How about the temple time? How about, all the different things we're trying to balance, as well as, of course, all of the meetings and all of the scout camps and this, that, and the other. And now I feel so good going into 2015 with this plan of, okay, so I have this in my car on a piece, on this little, it's one of those little window dividers, so I've got it slipped in there, and I have it on the seat next to me as I ride. So that way I can know it, maybe not while I'm driving, but before I start the car, I can glance down and say, what day are we? What time is it? Okay, great. There we go. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. And that helps, at least for me. Mrs. Hanson.
I like the comment that was made earlier too, when she was saying, you may have to give up hobbies. You may have to, not have quite so many other things going on in life, but you have to give up family. But that is something to take a serious look at when you are given more responsibility from the Lord, and to say, okay, to make sure you look at priorities. And I remember once you told me too that you actually schedule in on your calendar family times, so that when someone asks you, are you busy this night, you can very candidly say, yes, I am, because I have scheduled this with my family, and that's part of that balance. And also, too, I recognized in you a time when I may not have made the same choice. I would like to become that kind of person, but when you found that the toilets had overflowed in the church, and you'd already put in like a 10-hour day at church, and you were the only one in the building, and your family was waiting to go to the family dinner, and you just said, you called your wife and said, go to the family dinner without me. it was a moment where you would have loved to have spent it with your family, but you couldn't leave the church with the toilets overflowing for damage reasons or whatever, and you chose to stay there and clean it up yourself. There's all kinds of times in our life where your family did not go, oh, Dad's choosing the church over us.
Right.
Because of the other times you've dedicated in your life, and also because you, the Lord, your wife, understands that balance you're seeking and that you're trying. And that's one of the things where if we have a spouse or if we have children who do say to us, how come this is taking so much of your time? How come we are coming a second? That's a really good time to reevaluate. Am I really doing that?
Yeah.
Am I really putting my family second right now? And things like that, because often there is something there that's going on. But anyway, it's a combination of different kinds of thoughts that I just gave, but I hope that you can see.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for those thoughts. And I really do love how the Lord is so good to us. He gives us the Spirit. He'll guide us. And for example, like I can have my chart and I can, okay, this day, this time, here we go. My finger goes right here. That means, but if the Spirit dictates otherwise, we'll go by the Spirit. You know what I mean? And we'll know the times to stay and clean the toilets of the church versus the time to say, I'm going to call the other counselor and go to the family dinner.
Because
you know what I mean?
It really does mean marriage.
Right.
Exactly. And you'll know that's a very good point.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to get back here, too. As we're talking about all these wonderful things, Mrs. Despain made this very wise comment here. And what we're going to see is that, right, and this was to the priesthood, brethren, right, who these office holders in the priesthood. Brethren, when we stand before the Lord to be judged, will he look upon the positions we have held in the world, or even in the church? Do you suppose that titles we have had other than husband, father, or priesthood holder will mean much to him? Do you think he will care how packed our schedule was, or how many important meetings we attended? Do you suppose that our success in filling our days with appointments will serve as an excuse for failure to spend time with our wife and family? The Lord judges so very differently from the way we do. He is pleased with the noble servant, not with the self-serving noble. And I love that. Is there a line in there that, as we just continue to relate this to ourselves, particularly strikes you?
It's that one, do you suppose that titles we've had other than husband, father, wife, mother,
Right.
or church member will mean much to him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not going to care. It reminds me of, was it David O. McKay that said, when you have your personal priesthood interview with the Savior, here's the things he's going to ask about. And he's not going to care what church calling you've had.
Yeah, I love that. There's not a special place in the Celestial Kingdom for Relief Society presidents where they go off by themselves and pat themselves on the back.
Right.
That's not the gospel plan. God cares that we become like Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need to become like Jesus.
Right.
Thank you so much for that. Any other lines that stand out? Please.
I just noticed when I overbook myself or overextend on some things that the Lord has placed us in this situation so that we can learn. And so
Yes.
that we, He can see what our priorities are. And
Mhm.
I start thinking, okay, I got to see things as they really are. What are my motives truly for doing each of these things?
Yes.
And sometimes when I really try to be honest with myself about my motives, it helps me see what is the thing that I'm supposed to do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And if they are selfish motives or self-serving, noble motives,
Yes.
and I can say, oh, maybe that's not what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
Right.
Maybe I need to, do the thing that maybe requires a little more selflessness,
Right.
not so much self-aggrandizement. Is that the
Yeah.
word?
I know, I love that, right? Because living life that way, trying to not just do the right things, but also have the right motives, going by the Spirit to know the difference, there will be times where we will leave our children and say, I'm going to bring our dinner to the neighbor who's sick. And there will be other times where we will say, not tonight. There's someone else who will be blessed by serving, but our children will be blessed by having me here. But once again, on a different night, it could be the opposite answer for you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's more fun to be off helping set up the Relief Society
Yes.
than it is to be home
Yes.
with the crying children. And, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's kind of
Sometimes, for me, a 7 o'clock meeting means that I'm not putting down screaming children who are all throwing up. You know what I mean? And then my poor wife, who's not going to the meeting and not getting patted on the back for your excellent attendance at your church calling. Who's really doing the Lord's work? You know what I mean? And obviously, we need both, but we need to remember both.
Yeah.
So, and I think as we remember both. Oh, please, one more. Go
I
ahead.
have one more comment. It's just that Annie reminded me of. It's like sometimes in our church callings, we're like, I know how to do that. I know how to set up for this Relief Society meeting. But I've never been a parent before, and I just don't know what I'm doing there. And sometimes it is easier.
Yeah.
you feel more skilled.
Yeah. And obviously there are days when there's, more pats on the back for that than staying home with the growing up children.
Right.
Because other sisters around you, oh, it's so great.
Yeah.
But your kids don't always say, oh, Mom, you're just the best mom ever,
Yeah, definitely not.
So, yeah.
Maybe years later, you hope.
Oh, I know.
But
it's a little delayed.
Perhaps not in the moment. I think as we think about this wonderful opportunity we have to be a mother or to be a father, a husband, a wife, I love just this truth taught by President Packer at the April 2012 General Conference. The ultimate end of all activity in the church. You think about setting up for this and setting up for that and this meeting and that meeting. The ultimate end of all of it is to see a husband and his wife and their children happy at home, protected by the principles and laws of the gospel, sealed safely in the covenants of the everlasting priesthood. Husbands and wives should understand that their first calling, from which they will never be released, is to one another and then to their children. And imagine if we lived life that way, what choices would we make that might be different?
This quote needs to be hung several feet away in the hallway, like every
Yes.
for all the church members to read.
That's right. Every 3 feet in the hall, every 3 feet in the church, you know what I mean, to help us.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love that. And so once again, I love how we can have these wonderfully fruitful conversations, relate these amazing principles to our lives, all from a journal entry that said Joseph was at home. You know what I mean? And to me, that's a testament, as I've read these journals, about the power of relating, the power of this 4-houring process in our lives, as we don't just read through things, but say, wait a minute, sure, this is really, really short, and it could have been talking about this, that, and the other. I could have been put out that, we didn't get an account of Hans Mill, but instead, it helped me to be a better father. And as I spoke to my children, I was speaking with these things in mind yesterday, and that made a difference, even in conversations, as I remembered these things. Anyway, so with that said, here's the next one. Notice, very short, similar. Now we've got the eating. Okay? This is the 4th of September of 1838. Breakfast with him. And then remember, James Mulholland, he's boarding at the Smith home. That's why with him. Okay, so he's seeing the Smith family eat together. The him is Joseph. Breakfast with him, Joseph Smith, 7:30, at home for dinner a little before noon. So this dinner is what we might call lunch, right? When I used to spend time in the South, they would call lunch dinner there as well. They call what I call dinner supper. Anyway, and then etc. And again in the evening between 5 and 6 o'clock. So we've got 3 meals together. What can we reason here?
Eat together as a family.
Eat together as a family. Now this is huge.
It is.
Why? Why is it? I mean, this might seem like the simplest thing ever. Why is this so dramatically impactful?
It's becoming so rare.
Okay.
So rare. And the value of it can't be overestimated. It's the value of those moments together.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please, Mr. Anderson.
Elder Hales, in a recent general conference, said that one time he was taught by his mother that he shouldn't just kind of dine and dash, right?
Yes.
But that he needed to.
The baseball game.
That's right.
Right.
He'd go play baseball
Yeah.
with his friends, right? Again, but that this was time not just to refuel and run, right, but to dine and to discuss. He didn't use those words exactly, but that was the idea, that we're going to have relationships around this meal table, right? That this is where we have conversation. That's really I wonder sometimes why Heavenly Father made it so that we have to eat a few times a day.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He didn't just let us power up once in the morning.
Or once a week.
Right. Or once a month. Like maybe some animals can do, right?
Right. Yeah, oh yeah.
But his children,
snakes, they don't eat often.
That's right. And I think it's far more than just that we actually, I think there's a spiritual component to this, right? Tying families together, using food as a kind of a structural reminder that we are a family and we love and care for each other. We're not just passing ships in the night or passing, in the hallway. We're living parallel lives in rooms at the same house without crossing paths. So to me, that's the great tool there. And the fact that the prophet would do this too, would take time to eat, even for an hour, perhaps 5 to 6 o'clock. This wasn't just a quick 15 or 10-minute meal, right? This was an hour.
Yes, and I love that, and that's a great insight. It's a great insight.
So some of the most delightful times in our homes are when we have conversations around the dinner table that are rich feasts of discussions, not just food, not just the food. So
I love that.
It's what I love about our family reunions too, having 6 or 7 conversations going on.
Yes,
at the same time.
Yes,
all over food, which brings us together.
Yeah, it's this wonderful moment of bonding, right? We need to re-enthrone family dinner as a family sacrament, as a sacred act where we come and we're bound to each other and bound to the Lord by what we do when we are together. And this is...
And even maybe more than once a day. If
yes.
His father can make room in his schedule to have breakfast, family breakfast time, it's just as rich as family dinner before he dashes off to work. Or if he can take a lunch break occasionally, or whatever that may be, this is a good reminder that maybe one meal is admirable, but if you can do 2 or 3, great.
Oh, I love that. I love that. This is, and once again, I think these are such rich principles to pull out of such small journal entries. Please.
Now that I have adult-aged children, and we're trying to teach these values to them still, even at this age.
Yes.
When they are offered a job, it's very pleasing to me to hear them say the words, I'm thinking about taking this job over this one so that I can be home with a family more for dinner.
Yes.
And to see that thought process, even though I'm an adult now, I'm still realizing the value of it. Or this job is so appealing to me, and I really like so many things about it, but I have to work on Sundays. And should I sacrifice that? And so, these kinds of things where you're realizing that all these little things that you're teaching them, and so far my response to that has been, you need to decide that. You need to, because they're adult children and everything, and sometimes even let them experience the consequences of the choice for a while. And after the 3rd Sunday working, how are you feeling about this still? How are you, So to give them opportunities to, and I said, and even to ask the question, do you think the Lord will bless you to help you find another job if you do quit working on Sundays?
Yes.
And to let them experience these things so that they can understand what it feels like to have it and not have it.
Oh, I love that. What a wise comment. Thank you for that. Thank you for doing that with your children. I love these conversations. Here's President Uchtdorf. And this is another interesting concept. Our second key relationship is with our families. Since no other success can compensate for failure here, we must place high priority on our families. We build deep and loving family relationships by doing simple things together, like family dinner and family home evening, and by just having fun together. In family relationships, love is really spelled T-I-M-E, time. Taking time for each other is the key for harmony at home. Ooh, wait a minute. Taking time for each other is the key for harmony at home? That's huge. We talk with, rather than about, each other. We learn from each other, and we appreciate our differences as well as our commonalities. We establish a divine bond with each other as we approach God together through family prayer, gospel study, and Sunday worship. What have you seen to be true from this divine counsel, from prophets here in Revelation? Please.
I like the variety that's mentioned. Of course, time is common to all of them, but I like the fact that he says even just having fun together. To me, some of the chess games that I played with my sons, or the card games, right, have been bonding moments, real bonding moments, or walking around the block. Right, it's time together. Gospel study is so important. And so, but there have been times in my life where I felt like if all I did was read scriptures with my children and say prayer and family evening, I would be missing out some other element that's also beautiful and important.
Right.
And that's not to minimize gospel study and family prayer. Those, to me, I think are staples and they're essential. But the father who misses out on some of the other TIME, is probably missing out on some wonderful relationships.
I love that. I think some of the sweetest words I've ever heard my children say to me are when they say, "We have a silly daddy," to somebody else, and because they wouldn't see that as we're studying the scriptures together, as we're, that's a sacred time, and hopefully they would say, "We have a spiritual daddy too." But I love that they can also say, "We have a silly daddy," because we play together and do so many other fun bonding activities where you see someone in a different light and bind yourselves together in a different way.
Right.
I love that. Thank you. Well, was that a comment or no? Oh, sorry. I'm sensitive to the hand movement, so forgive me. I wanted to do this now. I'm very excited for this. I'm really excited for what we're going to share with each other. Would you please find a partner? So I think we've got 2, and then great, wonderful. We can do these three partnerships here. I think that would be fantastic. Here are the directions with this relate and record activity. With a partner, choose one of the following questions and take 4 minutes to discuss and record and answer. Be prepared to share. Here are the questions that you can consider with your partner. What are your favorite memories of family dinner? What routines or traditions have made family dinner a meaningful time of bonding and learning for you? What are at least 5 benefits of family dinners? Or what are 2 or 3 ways that you could make family dinner more meaningful at your home? Pick any question, relate, and record.
So how do you want us to divide
However
it?
you would like to do it, I am fine with. I trust you. So,
I need his input on
okay, I don't think we have any rotten eggs in the bunch. So, Mr. Anderson, who would you like to do it? I was thinking that I would be a partner, and then that way,
Okay.
yeah, if that's all right. Okay, fantastic. Great.
So, which one would you like to do?
I do like probably one of the first 2 for me. Do you have a preference between those 2?
Sunday.
Really? Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's do that one. Perfect.
Yeah. And are you
Just like you said a few minutes ago.
especially over?
Just eat discuss that, because I want this delicious food. But the challenge is to keep the conversation going over the roses, the buds and doors, and some traditions.
You should always have
Yeah.
your meal
Or what
and
we're saying,
plan.
highlights every day, and just listen to them.
So that you're not trying to get something. Yeah, that's all I mean.
Gene and I have conversations.
Right.
So
her primary how wonderful that is. And then the priestly people help with the
Right.
next
Yeah.
year.
Seriously.
And the children stop and they listen and they're quiet and they're tuned in to mom and dad and this conversation about
I tend to cook more when my kids get home.
Because
Right there.
My way of showing.
They'll chime in and they'll say, what does that word mean? You know, this right.
It's like, I feel like you love your mom.
Something, and
Yeah.
It's not something that I.
what does reduce
very
mean?
serious about. I mean,
And so I know they're listening.
Yeah.
To me, those
My
are
husband
kind of
says,
favorite moments when we're having
you
conversations
don't
with
do that.
even just Jim and I,
Love
and
it.
the children.
So it's not like,
No,
worry about
no,
it.
not at all. No.
Yeah.
What are some of their favorite?
I think I'm always like trying to find things that we call food.
No, I think for
You
me,
know,
we try to do
so-
two sort of different things at each every day.
You know, every
The one
family
is
has
to
it, but they're like,
learn
those are your
something.
staples,
And so we've
right?
got
So
flashcards
just
all
like
around the dinner table.
pancakes.
Because we have
They
sort
like
of
that for dinner, right?
just
We
this
have
high
something
countertop, you know, anyway,
called,
and we have these flashcards, and so,
we
you
call
know,
it
the kids will say, okay, let's sing vocabulary, and so we'll pick a word, you know, and we have this list, and we just go through.
Oh.
Which is really like,
and
oh
it'll
my
be something new for
blue
them.
cheese, where you
And
put
we'll teach them the definition, and then basically we have to go
green
around the
and
family, and
peas
everybody will
and
put us,
Well,
make a sentence, you know, with that.
and
And they love that. I didn't think they would. I mean, I thought, you know, oh, this might be helpful, you know, but they love it, especially Josh and me. They think it's so fun. They're like, that dinosaur trampled the ox. You know, they're like, ha ha ha. You know, it's so great to use the word trampled. You know, it's in some funny way. And that's the one that
and
we always
mom, this is
also.
kind of your
well, with the
and
flashcards,
that's
try.
amazing.
I always will tell them some nugget from what they taught us. Because I always try to tell them, you know, as a teacher,
That's like-
I'm always trying to help other people's kids, people's children,
Is that just,
and I want to make sure that they
and I actually, my aunt.
my best
used to
too.
so it kind of
And so I'll
has-
always try to share something. Oh, this was the most powerful part of the lesson
Yeah.
today. We talked about section, you know, maybe 49,
Yeah, there's just
15
certain
through
things.
17, where just the whole purpose of the earth
So
is,
I don't know
you know,
which one of those two.
all about families and marriage between men and women, and fighting spirits and bodies. And I found that as we just start talking, we'll say, no, wait a minute, what's that? You know, and we'll say, okay, well, you tell me what you know about that. And then we'll, you know, and suddenly we're just all talking about it. So we've ended up having, and, you know, I mean, sometimes we have to take a pause when we're swallowing or whatever, but these conversations
Electronics.
are about the gospel and the
And,
kids
you know,
are
make
just
sure
really
it's-
excited about it. You know, and that's been fun. And so I do have good memories with that. The other thing is just kind of ongoing family jokes that we have.
That's her whole thing. She's like,
when
my kids are scattered.
we're trying to introduce the name that my wife and I felt good about for Hope.
And, you
You know,
know,
we told our children, like, okay, what name are you feeling good about?
There's a reason to
We
come,
love
right?
the name Hope, you know, for
So-
these reasons that we're explaining.
It's a good
all
thing
this.
to do.
And then we say, well, you don't know what we think about this name Hope, you know.
Rather than
And then
find
we said,
something.
well, just
It's like-
see it has a good ring to it, like, little Hope has bees on her head. Could you see yourself saying that one day? And they, for some reason, that sentence, they thought it was so funny. So now, anytime Hope will put food in her hair, she'll say, Hope has bees in her head. Ha, ha, ha. We remember when you wanted to name her Hope and we didn't like it, but now we like it. You know, and just kind of keeping these conversations from going, the little jokes, the fun, you know, the moments together. I think that,
I don't mind at all.
like almost like a relay, keeping the baton moving, you know, is another thing.
Participating in it,
It's just
making
been
it
fun.
a fun activity rather than
Anyway, this
you go, you know, you plan along, you shop along, you.
good to hear about your family. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then we're
The
going
gospel
to talk
discussions, we try to have them.
Yeah.
I would say they're the most enjoyable.
Yeah.
Certainly, the Spirit can be felt many, many times, more frequently
Have
than
you heard what
than
you
people
like?
sometimes give it
I forget
a
exactly, but it's kind of this,
Yeah,
the whole
definitely.
family takes
Ah.
It's been a fun
whatever.
too. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Well, oh no, sorry, no, I was. Are you finished? I didn't mean to cut you off. Are you still?
I was just going to say.
Please, go ahead, finish.
That needs to start on the dishes. Then that makes him not want to be the first one. So it makes him linger longer.
I like that. I like that.
Get up and start
So
working.
the,
Yeah.
So did you say learn something and share something?
so no, we try to do sort of just kind of two things,
Yeah.
and just we have flashcards. You know, it could be U.S. states and capitals, famous places around the world, vocabulary, and just all these different numbers, colors, shapes, all these different things, And so we always try to do a card. and have then everybody goes around and we learn something about the cards, you know, and then I always try to teach them something from what I've taught that day, you know, lesson, just kind of a nugget, maybe the most powerful part, and talk about that, you know, as well as, of course, oh, what'd you do today, and other things, but we always try in some way to get those in as well. But no, that's kind of fun. But no, I would love to hear, which question did you pick, and would you give us just a summary of what you shared together?
I'll do it really quick.
Okay.
Well, Hiram and I both have the same favorite memory, which was kind of fun, which was having a French raclette dinner. We get together and we do that. That's something that we started when we lived in France.
Yeah.
So it's a very special time.
And how often do you do it?
You know what?
Christmas.
Yeah,
Oh,
we've been
fantastic.
doing it once a year, but we're going to start doing it more often.
Oh, well, great.
Together, because we were like, if that's our favorite, then we're going to do
Sunday
that.
dinner.
I like
Another
it.
thing- Another thing Hiram said is sometimes at family dinner, I'm like, can everybody stop being so silly? Can you stop, you know, and he's like, sometimes I feel like we never can be silly.
Right.
And so we thought, well, maybe we need to have some fun, silly time too. Maybe if it's after dinner, we play more games together, we do things like that.
Yeah.
So just so we can enjoy some fun, silly time.
I love that. Fun, silly time. Coming from a silly dad. Sounds good to me. What, please, either one.
We found out Heidi's going to bring us some food
Oh,
time.
great. We can have a class dinner. We can bond together.
Oh, I can do that, sure.
Heidi
I
wasn't aware of that, but
I love how you were just so willing to allow her to earn those blessings. Wonderful.
no, she was telling about a really funny thing their family has what's called spew. Tell them about it, Heidi.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, I'll ask my kids, what would you like me to cook? And, you
Sure.
know, you have your staples,
Sure.
right? Your signatures
The
on
go-to.
somehow, right?
Right.
And there was this dish that my aunt would make, and I mean, it's really unusual, but if I ask my kids what they want, and they want comfort food, this is what they want. So, yeah, it's really not called that, but my daughter made that name up
Yeah.
because it's like Spam
Oh,
stew.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we combine it, right?
Yeah,
Spew.
awesome.
It sounds awful. But
Oh, no, that's what we understand.
it's really good. It's
Yeah.
just a white cream sauce made with cream cheese.
Oh.
You can't go wrong with that, right?
Of course.
With like boiled baked potatoes,
Right.
just diced, and peas,
Oh.
frozen peas, and then Spam.
Yeah.
And really, Spam in that way, my kids are like, they'll tell any of their friends, you might think it's gross, but you try it like that, and
Yeah.
it's really good. So.
Wow. Well, I just, you know, I've always liked Spam. I hope,
Well, there you
I-
go. They
just
tell a lot.
at Boy
That's
Scout
funny.
camp, we'd just cook it on the fire. It was great. So, my mission, we would
It's the only thing I
use
use
it.
Spam in, but it's actually really good. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. And I love how this shared memory. You know, you think of this idea of feeling like you belong in a community, right? You don't just wake up one day and say, I'm part of a community. You know, whether that's a family community, a ward community, an American Heritage class, after-school community, but you have these shared memories that then become these bonding links. And you're like, oh, remember when that happened? And then everybody, oh, here's this common knowledge, and we all are taken back in our memory to this time that we've enjoyed together. And food can do that in such powerful ways.
Well, my
You know.
kids actually bring either someone they're dating
Yeah.
or if they've married them, it's kind of like, well, you can't be part of our family
Ah.
unless you have this and like it.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Oh, I
know,
love
do,
I
you know.
love that. So
Kind of the test.
yes.
You
Now,
might
has
want
Walker
one
brought anyone to take the
staple
test
thing.
yet?
Yeah.
Oh, and did she pass?
Yeah.
Well,
Was it
congratulations.
like
Yeah.
a new position of sorts?
What's this?
Oh, was it a...
My new daughter-in-law.
Initiation.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like,
Yeah.
you have to come and try this and see if
Oh.
you liked it. And, yeah.
So fun. Oh, that's fantastic.
It's hard not to like something with cream cheese. I mean, you know, right?
Yeah.
So.
Oh, wonderful. Mr. Anderson, would you like to add anything else from our conversation?
No, I thought those were great. We tend to try to have gospel conversations too around the dinner table. Not every day. Sometimes it's just fun and silly.
Sure.
But you know, again, this idea of having it be conversation is
Mhm.
something we've just really, really
Yeah.
loved. And when we find ourselves sometimes not rushing after the dinner, but lingering longer because we're just all enjoying there, you know, that happens a couple times a week, and I want it to happen every night.
Yes.
So.
Love that. Please,
I have
Heidi.
one thing to say.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about this, that, you know, the other word time is love.
Yes.
I know for my kids, because as they get older, they don't need as much from me. But when I spend the time to make good food,
Yes.
that's how they tell I care.
Yeah,
They
that's
can tell I
huge
care about 'em, 'cause
for a
I don't
teenage
really
stomach.
love to cook that much.
Yeah.
And they know if I make the sacrifice to do it, they are like, Mom, thank you so much. You
Wow.
know, and that is the way that they feel like I love them. So sometimes we find the
Yeah.
little things like that I love them regardless of whether I cook.
Yes,
But
of course.
To them, that's kind of a symbol that I do.
Perhaps
care about them.
a love
Because
language.
it's a sacrifice for me, and they know it, and
Yeah.
so they appreciate it all the more.
I love that. Thank you so much.
And I
Please.
guess I would just say, for me, a takeaway is make sure to leave enough time for dinner, which we
Yes.
do often.
Right.
But I sometimes resent it when there are interruptions to dinner
Yeah.
because it is that sacred
Yeah.
time. And I shouldn't resent it. But what I mean is, if I have to run off to a meeting, you
Right.
know, and I just really do like enough time to really enjoy those conversations
Yes.
instead of eating around.
And taste the food,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. God's given us a beautiful earth, and we are to enjoy it. You know,
Yeah.
please the eye, gladden the heart. That's what food does for me. You know. So no, I love that. And I think it really is just powerful too. You know, one thing we've tried to do, you know, for that is our rule is just no one picks up the phone when we are eating. No one answers the phone. They can leave a message, you know, and if
Right.
someone's house is burning down, then we'll hear that on the message, and then we can all get up and help them. You know, but otherwise they can leave a message, and you know.
See the fire?
Right, and once again, this idea of, you know, what messages are you sending your children by the choices you make? Because, you know, we've never told our children, family dinner is so important to us that we're not going to pick up the phone. But by telling them, oh, we don't answer the phone, by them just seeing us let it go. Because we've had people over to our house for dinner, and it drives some people crazy. They cannot hear a phone ring without, aren't you going to answer that? They're, I mean, almost, you know, ready to pull out their hair. Oh no, we're not. Why? Because this is more important. Okay. You know, and they're taking this deep breath, trying to cool down. You know. Anyway, so there's so many things we can do. With that said, I just want to share, you know, we're all trying so hard to find balance. You know, we're all, I'd imagine, imperfect at this. We have so many demands competing for our time. And that is one of the great blessings as well as challenges of living in these last days, where we're just, I mean, you know, you are on this beck and call chain if you have a smartphone, or, you know, just constantly bing, and you know, and it's one of the reasons why I don't have one, I'll just be frank. But it's interesting, you know, not that it's evil, I'm sure many do, and you can use them for great good as well. I want that to be stated. But can I just say, you know, we have so many opportunities to spend time with our families in ways that, you know, for example, I don't have to go and shoot the deer and then cook it, you know, after I've taken all the hair off and all that, so that my family can eat. I have time where I can come home and just put something in the oven, you know, with my wife, and then we can eat together. We have blessings, but we also have so many meetings, and we can Skype, and we can go to meeting. I mean, you know, here, there, and everywhere. Now, with that said, I just want to share just a brief testimony at the end. And this is, so we just took this picture over Thanksgiving. Here are all the little cherubs. We've got Mia now, who just turned 7 on Friday. Josh is 5. Acadia is 3, and Hope is 1. And I absolutely love what these sweet little ones teach me. I try to teach them, but I certainly can say they've taught me way more than I have ever even tried to teach them. But Mia one day, this was, I'm trying to think if this was last year or 2 years ago, but it was fairly recently, and, you know, I was rushing off to another meeting, you know, and she was saying, Dad, where are you going? And I said, oh, this is a teaching moment. I will say, I am going to help the young men of our ward, or whoever it was, you know. And she said, okay. She said, well, you know, but you were already at work the whole day. And I said, oh, another teaching moment. Mia, you know, I was trying to help these students gain testimonies of the God, and I was feeling pretty good, you know. And then she said, well, I need you to stay home to help me. And I had to stop right there, and I gave her this huge hug, and I said, Mia, this is so important. What you said is so important, and I am going to do something about it. Give me some time, please. You know, obviously, I do have a commitment right now. It is the right thing for me to go, but you give me some time with this, because yeah, it's not right for you to only see your dad as someone who is helping the kids at Lehigh High School, is helping the, you know, the young men of the ward, is helping the Relief Society with their activity, is helping, you know, this, that, and the other. And, well, I need you to stay home to help me. Don't you help me too, or only other people? And that was a huge question from her. Anyway, and so my wife and I put our heads together, and that's when we decided to come up with what we call special time, where for an hour each day, I have time that's devoted to just one child. And sometimes it gets cut short to 35 minutes. But as much as humanly possible, and this is on that schedule, that I planned in. Mia has Thursday, Josh has Wednesday, Hope has Tuesday, and Acadia has Monday. And they know that that is their time with me, when it's going to be special for them, just the two of us. We do lots of things as a family. We do things in groups, 3 here, 4 there, but that is just one-on-one. And they look forward to it, and it has been one of the greatest things that we've ever tried to do. And we're not always perfect at it, but we've tried to be really diligent at it for now a couple of years, in large part because of this great comment where Mia taught me something about priorities. And I just want to testify that God can help us to find different ways, and maybe for your families, maybe that wouldn't work, and that's okay. That happened to be the right thing, at least right now, for our family, and it's working, and we love it, and we're committed to it. But maybe it'll be something else for you. My invitation with love is just to evaluate how you spend your time. And do you have the balance that you feel good about? And if not, ask the Lord. He'll help you to know what He wants you to do to find that balance. I know that He wants us to have balance in our lives. I know that it's hard to achieve that balance. There are many days where, for other reasons, I do feel like, boy, I need to do better. But I want to testify that as I have tried, I have felt the Lord guide me to know what to do. And as I failed, I felt Him gently say, hey, you can do better. And then He's forgiven me as I've repented and tried to do better. I know He can do that for us. And I know that we need to put our families in that wonderful position in which they need to be in our lives as we balance all the other good things with those that are better and best. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. So whose day is it today?
So today is Hope. Hope is Tuesday. Hope is Tuesday.
So what time do you do it? Like after dinner?
Just after dinner. So, I'll get home. So basically, I'll usually do it before dinner for perhaps half the time, and then after dinner for half the time, and then I've got something at 7. So anyway, would you offer our closing prayer, please, Mrs. Spain? Thank you so much.
Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful to have been here this day to learn more about the prophet Joseph and to relate his experiences to ours. And we ask Thee to bless each member of this class, that we might be more diligent and concerned at home, that we might form those relationships and strengthen the relationships within our family. And we're so grateful for our families and the great gift they are in our lives, and we ask for Thy help and for Thy inspiration. We are so grateful for all the blessings we have been given, and we feel it a privilege to live on the earth at this time when the gospel is here in its fullness. And we are so grateful for the gift of Thy Savior, Father, and we honor Him, and we remember Him, and we serve Him. And we offer this prayer in His name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that beautiful prayer. And I love how your binder matches your shirt. It's fantastic. Anyway, I can't believe it, but our last class for this semester is next week. Wow. But then we'll be at it again if you'd like. We'd love to have you. Of course, next semester we'll just continue with the next volume of the journal series.
Oh, okay.
So, same time. So.
I hadn't known if it was continuing.
Is that okay to announce?
That's okay. Because we included it, and we'll include it
so
again
much.
in the important announcements and reminders that Mr. Beck will send out. So you'll see that.
Thank you so much. All right. In fact, let's see.
Well,
If you would like to, I'll
Annie,
just say
that's
goodbye.
when you come today.
Thank you so much.
My son's home from work, and so I didn't,
Oh, thank
wasn't
you.
leaving the